I definitely have to highlight this. Fine. I was looking out for this. I was looking out for Damian Crawford to, speak on the situation in Cooper's Pen. I have not read it. I have not read it, but I want to play this first and then go into that.
Matter of principle, and it isn't negotiable, and it will never be, no matter what price is paid.
Your support of Dr. Castro and a certain number of his causes, that having Cubans here, has helped to antagonize the United States towards Jamaica?
Well, first of all, I've never supported Dr. Castro and his causes. I've discovered points where we have similar causes. We share causes. I don't support his causes, nor he mine for that matter. But that the relationship has contributed to and been the cause of strain with the United States, of that there's no question. It's a matter of principle.
Why did you do it?
Because it is a matter of principle. Because to me it is an absolute matter of principle, and it isn't negotiable, and it will never be, no matter what price is paid. It is not negotiable for me to believe that a small country has to determine its policy by reference to what some powerful neighbor feels.
Comrades, all I can say.
Business, and all this happens. And certainly that has had a tremendous effect on investment. It has slowed down investment, and we paid high prices. To me, there's just no point to the world if everybody is going to have to compromise every principle they believe in merely because some big neighbor might get vexed. Matter of...
So, ladies and gentlemen, you see, the attack against democratic socialism from the Jamaica Labour Party and all their opponents, you have to understand, they're telling you that they are okay with compromising their principles. Because this is what Michael Mann stood on. Principle. And if we were not so far gone from our creator, this wouldn't even be a conversation, but because we're living in the last days, and you have it's a nation of viper, you understand? And you have so many of them that call right, wrong, and wrong, right. It is easy for the Jamaica Labour Party to garner a lot of support when going against democratic socialism. Even when you look at models, Miss Chicago, how you doing, my darling? Even when you look at models all around the world, democratic socialism or social democrat, whichever way you want to put it. One of my Christopher was in the comment section a while ago, naming out some of the places that actually practice democratic socialism or social democracy. Right? And they are some of the most prosperous places on earth. They are some of the most advanced in education. A lot of these places have to get people from outside to come and do the regular jobs, because education is so high at the top of the list. But it's still because we have a Jamaica Labour Party that endorse
fully done.
Them endorse fully done, ladies and gentlemen. You understand? It's very easy for persons like Vegas to go up and put up posts and talk foolishness and be dishonest about the difference between socialism and democratic socialism. They just want to group everything together and deceive the people. They are dishonest and they are evil and wicked, ladies and gentlemen, because they're doing it on purpose. It's not only that they are fully dunce. When the facts are presented, they ignore them. You understand? But let's go to Damian Crawford post here, ladies and gentlemen. Measuring in the minor from Canefield to Cooper's Pen by MP Damian Crawford. Let's read. It says here the almost exclusive focus on Cooper's Pen as an independent occurrence unfortunately puts the nation in danger of majoring in the minor. Hidden in the political blame game, jokes and ridicule is a more consequential question. The question is not simply whether the approximately 600 occupants of Cooper's Pen possess legal title, but instead how almost 2 centuries after emancipation, approximately 700,000 Jamaicans are still considered squatters, and further, why the vast majority of the descendants of the Afro-Jamaican remain without legal title to the land. This is to this very day. Cooper's spend therefore represents less than 0.1% of a much larger national land access problem. Marcus Garvey warned that a people without the knowledge of their past, history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. To understand how we are right here, we therefore must understand our history. My argument is straightforward. Afro-Jamaican landlessness is not simply the product of poverty, lawlessness, or individual failure. It has historical roots in a colonial system in which control over land was used to maintain control over labor. I think the pun was intended, ladies and gentlemen. After emancipation, limiting access to lands became central to maintaining a cheap and dependable plantation labor force. The historical record is clear that large proprietors sought to restrict Afro-Jamaicans' access to land and to maintain a landless proletariat rather than independent peasantry, because of concerns that land independence would reduce the supply of plantation labor. The laws and policies that followed, therefore, formed part of the oppressive architecture that denied access to lands, restricted economic independence, and maintained the plantation access to cheap labor. I beg your indulgence to briefly recount this history. 1655 to 1833, the establishment of the plantation land system. Following the British conquest of Jamaica in 1655, large areas of land were distributed by the Crown and consolidated into the plantation economy. Enslaved Africans were excluded from ownership and the accumulation of property, as they themselves were considered property. This was the foundation upon which the post-emancipation and land system was built. Right? 1833, the real property, I keep saying poverty, what's wrong? I'm out here just making up words, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just here making up words. Give me a second. This is excellent so far from Damian Crawford, ladies and gentlemen. I love the angle in which he is actually taking this, and I believe this is the conversation. I wouldn't say that I have, articulated it and made reference. Absolutely not. He's the genius. He's the teacher. But I have made, a lot of us here on social media has made mention of the fact that there is 700,000+ other people that is in similar situation. And I was always trying to make the point that, Bridget, we need to look beyond just Cooper spend. If them can do it to Cooper spend, they're coming for you next. So why is it that the people are not looking at it in that way? They're looking at it like, oh, it happened to them, but it not happened to me. This is a mistake. This is a mistake. It's a fundamental mistake, ladies and gentlemen. And we absolutely need to get outside of that mentality because it is no good for us. It's not productive. We're not going to reach anywhere from that. Please remember to like and share the video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And subscribe to the platform if you haven't yet subscribed. You understand? That is it. Let's move on. I need to see the comment section when I'm reading it. Alright, I don't want to miss anything. Big up Christopher again. Christopher, put the names of the countries in the comment section for me that practice democratic socialism or social democracy. Alright, so 1833, the Real Property Limitation Act and the abolition of slavery. On the 24th of July 1833, the British Parliament enacted the Real Property Limitation Act, concretizing the extraordinary 60-year period applicable to claims involving Crown land. Oh, so just 35 days later, the same parliament enacted the Slavery Abolition Act. The significance is striking. The 60-year period exceeded the average life expectancy of Afro-Jamaicans at the time, which was less than 40. The abolition settlement also preserved the underlying imbalance in property ownership. Jamaican slave owners received more than £10 million in compensation, while the enslaved received nothing. That is, the persons that were enslaved, us the people. We received nothing. Our ancestors received nothing, but the slave owners received all of this. So if the slave owners wanted to stay in Jamaica, while it being that it was illegal, slavery would be abolished. They could now live a wonderful life with all of those monies that they had. But we was absolutely at zero, while at zero all the years we were enslaved. But they never put anything in the law to change this part of it, where it talks about the 60-year period applicable to claim Crown land. But at the same time, 35 days later, slavery was abolished. When they abolished slavery, why you never abolished this criteria for claim Crown land? And you know, this is maybe some people might argue that it was, you know, I won't go there because I am now looking back at, so why they didn't remove it altogether. But then you have to look on the politics of it all. Both parties would have to come to some type of consensus about removing it, debating it and all of that and making it law for it to actually happen. But anyway, moving on. The abolition settlement also preserved the underlying imbalance in property ownership. Jamaican slave owners received more than £10 million in compensation, while the enslaved received nothing. The planter also retained ownership of their land as their productivity asset. The newly freed population received freedom, but neither land nor compensation. This is injustice. This is injustice that needs to be, you know, justice needs to be served. Right? The ancestors of these brothers and sisters. No land, no compensation. Time come, no man. Time come. 1838, full emancipation and the free village movement. With full emancipation in 1838, formerly enslaved Jamaicans increasingly sought land outside the plantation. Through the free village movement, land was purchased mainly by churches and subdivided so that free Jamaicans could establish homes and farms and farm independent of the estate. These free villages demonstrated that access to land meant access to real economic freedom. 1839, the Vagrancy Act. The Vagrancy Act of 1839 effectively criminalized aspects of the landlessness by making persons without recognized employment or means of support vulnerable to arrest. So you free the people and then you made a law to criminalize them for not having having land. This is unjust. I never knew this. For a person without access to land on which to live and produce, this increased dependency upon wage labor. The Vagrancy Act therefore operated within a wider system in which restricted access to land and the regulation of labor reinforced each other. Wow. Wow. No, Jamaica, this is unjust. So even the people in a Cooper spend is a remnant of the past. Right? Them go, lock them up. Oh, you depend people private property. Right? No, sir. 1840 to 1864 continued restriction of land access to preserve plantation labor. During the decades after emancipation and plantocracy, continued to resist widespread access by now freed Afro-armed Jamaican to land. Large proprietors restricted sales, demanded high prices for small lots, and used their political influence to restrict access to crown lands. The taxation system also placed disproportionate burdens on small plots compared with large estate. The intent and economic logic were clear. Limiting access to land helped preserving access to cheap plantation labor. These policies were not simply about maintaining order, they were about maintaining an economic system. Next page. 1865, the Morant Bay Rebellion. By 1865, land access, poverty, taxation, political exclusion, and unequal access to justice had contributed to a profound crisis. Poor Jamaicans petitioned the Crown for relief, including greater access to lands. The response, remembered as the Queen's advice, emphasized industry and wage labor rather than substantially expanding access to land. So basically, they just give the people them one little bit. They don't give them no real power. They don't give them no real access to their own independence. Amen. Central to the conditions surrounding the Morant Bay Rebellion was the inaccessibility of land for shelter, farming, and economic independence. And guys, we must remember that Anjonis has pledged allegiance to these same families that did this to the people. He's a Privy Council member. Let us never forget that. Amen. 1869, the District Court Land Law, the Squatters Act. 2 years later came the District Court's Land Law, 1867. Sorry, not 65, 1867. Commonly referred to as the Squatters Act. The law provided a more efficient legal mechanism through which persons claiming ownership could remove squatters from land. It therefore strengthened the formal ownership against persons whose claims rested largely upon occupation. The distinction between the owner and the squatter became increasingly enforceable through colonial law. That history matters today because the term squatter did not develop in a society where access to ownership had been equal. Jamaica, the fact that the Prime Minister calls the people of Cooper's Pen or anywhere else squatters, it tells you that he is of the same mentality as the slave owners of the past. I told you that he was a house slave, but you never believe. But tell us I'm a house slave. 1869, the Crown Land Act. The Crown Land and all of his followers, all of you are house slaves. Every last one of them. The Crown Land Act of 1869 further formalized colonial control and administration of Crown lands. This was particularly significant because Crown land represented one of the obvious potential sources of land for a population that had emerged from slavery largely without property. To establish a claim against Crown land under the 60-year rule in 1869, an Afro-Jamaican would effectively have needed to demonstrate occupation extending back to 1809 despite slavery continued until 1838. So the law itself was impossible. The law was put there intentionally for them not to have any access to owning land, ladies and gentlemen. What a diabolical evil. 1881, the Limitations of Actions Act. The Limitations of Actions Act maintained the extraordinary 60-year limitation period for Crown land. Put simply, decades of occupation were insufficient to extinguish the Crown's claim for a population historically excluded from widespread formal ownership. This created a formidable barrier to converting long occupation of Crown land into legal ownership. Most significantly, the 60-year Crown land protection remains part of Jamaica's law today. My God. The registration of the Titles Act. The registration of the Titles Act of 1889 established the formal registered title system. The registration provided certainty and security but entering the system required surveys, documentation, legal processes, and money. Those unable to meet these requirements often remain dependent upon family arrangements, informal occupation, and undocumented inheritance. The consequences remains familiar today. A family can occupy land for generations without possessing the legal title necessary to transform that land fully into an economic asset. Less than 40% of occupied land is titled. Wow, that means 60 plus percent of land that is occupied is not titled, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. The Crown Property Vesting Act. The Crown Property Vesting Act of 1960 established Commissioner of Lands and provided for the vesting and administration of crown property. Right? Jamaica independence 1962. Independence did not automatically redistribute land or repeal the inherited land laws. Instead, it changed who possessed the power to do so. Important. You see, no context matters. Here we go. Because this is where you say, all right, what would it take to actually change those laws based off how independence was dealt with? Independence did not automatically redistribute land or repeal the inherited land laws. Instead, it changed who possessed the power to do so. Parliament became ours, the government became ours, the public lands became ours to administer, and the inherited laws became ours to change. For generations, Afro-Jamaicans lived under laws they had little meaningful power to make or amend. Independence transferred that responsibility to us. History therefore explains what we inherited. It cannot indefinitely excuse what we choose to preserve. I therefore beseech my colleagues, some of whom may be encountering parts of this history for the first time, let us not perpetuate the oppression through continued inaccessibility to land ownership. If we are serious about reparatory justice, let us make access to Crown land the starting point, a start entry within our control. Ladies and gentlemen, Damian Crawford. Ladies and gentlemen, MP Damian Crawford. Ladies and gentlemen, the teacher Damian Crawford. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call a scholarly breakdown. Kimono, you doing? Hi, Celine, what's up? Ladies and gentlemen, that is phenomenal. That is absolutely phenomenal. And I want to encourage you guys to share this video. And when I post that video by itself, share it. Right? Make it go viral. Listen, what Damian Crawford just did is give you the entire context, pun intended. Big up Isaac. Because I don't know Isaac was say. Me take away him thing, I have to make sure say Isaac context matters, yes. Big up yourself. But seriously speaking, ladies and gentlemen, he put it all into context. The past is the past. The context of the past is what it was. It was there to deal the people wrongfully. Now, we have an opportunity right now to change that. What is Andrew Wallace going to do? He has all the power. If he has the power to make Nara, to give him all this power to do all these things, well, he has the power to change these laws to benefit the people of Jamaica. Amen? And it's quite clear that the People's National Party, based off their, what do you call it? Oh my God. Their bio that they put out last year before the election, right? What they had planned for the people. right? Based off that, it was in their intention, ladies and gentlemen, based off the policies that they presented that they would have implemented. Amen. That they were ready for this exact move. So now we have to look at the Jamaica Labour Party and say, well, talk is cheap. You can't tell the people that you are really about empowering the people. Well, the most vulnerable of the people been suffering under laws that has disadvantaged them, and we just went over them. And of course, from 1962 till now, as a collective PMP and JLP, you guys had the opportunity to change it. No, you can't go in a one big old blame game about oh, PMP never do it and oh, JLP never do it. Well, we have now. Make this your legacy, Andrew Wallace. I double dog dare you to take up the challenge of what Damian Crawford said and put it into action. I want you to rush it like how you did rush the constitutional change. I want you to rush it like how you rushed the NARA bill. I want you to give it that much focus. I want you to give it that much, veracity. Oomph. You understand? Yeah, man. Pressure it, man. Let's go. We in our crisis. Too much people don't have any homes and they don't have any land. Let us change that. They need their titles. Let us change that. So let's see if he's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, make this reasoning viral. Like, share, and subscribe. All right?